Good morning, social studies students. This is Mr. Seow, and today I want to talk about the social studies question 7 essay. In particular, we're going to talk about chapter 4, Good of Society. So before you begin, you should have this worksheet with you on the question 7 essay, as well as your essay notes with you. Two additional optional things you could have with you. First is, as you recall, you did this reading worksheet using your textbook, and on page 2 of this reading worksheet there is a summary of the 3x3 table about how do citizens and governments work for the good of society. The rows represent what can be done, the 3 rows, and the columns represent who is responsible for doing these things, of addressing the needs of society, of influencing decision making in public affairs, and of strengthening the sense of belonging. We say that the 3 actors, the key actors in this chapter, are the individuals, the community groups, and the government. So this table on your reading worksheet will be particularly useful. You could also have your mind maps with you, and I think that some of the mind maps done by your classmates are really very well done in organizing the information. For example, this student, he organized it, the good of society as needs, sense of belonging, and decision making in public affairs. And under each of these key categories, there are even more subpoints. So another student organized it downwards from the good of society by explaining and defining what is the good of society, and then coming up with more elaborations and examples. So your mind map could be helpful, the mind map worksheet. The second thing you might want to have with you for this today's essay practice is your textbook, as usual. And you want to flip here to page 94, which is the start of the chapter, page 94. If you have already read the whole chapter and you just want a summary, page 114 is the summary of the whole chapter. So there are many resources available to you to start off your work for today. Let's recap. The question 7 essay is a weighing essay, and it requires the following: that you analyze the question for the factor and focuses, that you craft a Pew argument, and then you weigh the Pew arguments. And we said that this is the important thing, that you must have 2 Pews for your essay, and the weighing is optional. So I'll focus my lesson today on the 3 steps. At the end of the lesson, I also want to introduce a new weighing technique to you. So stay tuned. So let's look at this question. Do you agree that community groups play a more important role than the government in meeting the needs of the elderly? Analyze the question. What is the factor? What is the focus? So I hope you have done this. Factor 1 is community groups. Factor 2 is the government. And the focus is meeting the needs of the elderly. So annotate this question. If you need a quick refresher on what each of these mean, you can refer to the previous video. And once you're done, can we go to the next page and look at these 3 questions, 7B, 7C, 7D? And can you pause the video and take perhaps 3 minutes to label all the factors and focuses as well? I'll go through all three questions because there's a twist at the end, which you should have realized. 7B, the government is factor 1, the citizens is factor 2, and working for the good of society is the question focus. Right, so your PUs would go, the first PU would be, the government has an important role in working for the good of society. For example, the government does this and does that and does that. As a result, the government is really effective. It has all the resources. It can have a higher impact in meeting the needs of people, a higher impact in ensuring that larger groups are not left out, so on. The second PU would be citizens have an important role to play in working for the good of society. Citizens have done this and done that. Citizens are very important because they volunteer their time, effort, and money to contribute to important social causes. As a result, citizens form the backbone, the manpower to provide the warm bodies that can go out and catch all the people in need in every nook and cranny, people that might be missed by government data collection. Citizens also create a sense of belonging. When someone comes to you and forms a bond and contributes their help, it creates a good social solidarity. You feel welcome. You feel like you are a part of a united, larger group that someone cares for you, and that increases harmony and cohesion. So this essay is very clear cut. Similarly, 7C, individuals is factor 1, community groups is factor 2, and influencing decision making in public affairs is the focus. I do not. I think you don't need me to elaborate further. So it is 7D that's a bit weird, and I'm going to spend a bit of time. In your opinion, is it more important for community groups to address the needs of society or to strengthen citizens' sense of belonging to the country? This question is interesting. It's very interesting because this is the first time I've given you a question where there is the factor and just one factor, because then over here you have, I hope someone has tried realized this, you have focus 1 and you have focus 2. So you just have one factor, which is the community groups, and then you need to explain the PU argument for how community groups is important for them to address the needs of society. And in the second PU, it's important for the same factor, the same community groups, to strengthen citizens' sense of belonging. And so this is a question type, the first time I've done this for you, where you would have one factor and two focuses. So from the strategy is still the same. It's still from factor to focus. So PU1 for 7D would still be, it is important for community groups to address the needs of society. For example, community groups so your PU1 would still be the usual, and your PU2 would be, it is important for community groups to strengthen citizens' sense of belonging. So your PUs are still running from factor to focus. You still need to explain from factor to focus, meaning you describe the factor, you give an example of the factor relevant to your argument, then you explain how this factor drives to the focus. Your PU arguments are still constructed from factor to focus, but this question is interesting because now you have one factor and two foci, and this is a possible form of the essay questions. So we are very used to factor 1, factor 2, focus. Now I introduce today to you factor 2, focus 1, and focus 2. Okay, so you will try that all, of course, on your own in your own time. Let's go back to 7A. This is a very familiar form of the question we have. So we have factor 1 community groups. beside the point, the community groups have a important role to play an important role in meeting the needs of the elderly. Recall that for this question is community groups, government, and meeting the needs of the elderly. So community groups are organized to rally resources and volunteers. You should be highlighting as I go through this essay. For example, social services like RSVP Singapore, they serve 200,000 beneficiaries, including the elderly. So here I give description and example. This is my evidence, or sometimes also called elaboration. Evidence, which is sometimes also called elaboration. And then now I want to explain. Explaining is connecting from the factor to the focus. Right now I've only talked about the factor, which is community groups. I want now to connect this to the focus. So why are the elderly needs met? Like how come now the elderly feel that someone is taking care of them? How come the elderly have greater well-being and welfare? So that's about meeting the needs of the elderly. What in fact are their needs? So well, the elderly needs are met because they feel cared for. Now they feel a sense of belonging. And furthermore, the social interactions keep them engaged and mentally active, which improves their health. Aha! So the need here I'm meeting is health, active aging, quality of life. And furthermore, because the community groups organize the volunteers in a targeted and lasting way, the benefits are going to be sustainable and long-term. So elderly needs are being met continuously. And thus, community groups play an important role in meeting the needs of the elderly. That is your first Pew argument gone downwards. Now let's do this one. Please pause the video and try it on your own first. And I hope you have done so. Okay, so let's do the point. This is factor 2 now. The government plays an important role in meeting the needs of the elderly. All right. What is the government? Well, the government creates structures, policies, national programs for community support. Let's look for an example. So we are now in your essay notes. I'm going to bounce to the part about chapter 4, working for the good of society. This is on page 14. And because I want the needs of elderly, that will be part under the needs of society. So please highlight this table, the needs of society. And I want the government. So the government is here. Okay, I have the National Council of Social Services. Okay, I guess this is the example I want. For example, the National Council of Social Services develops the capabilities of the social service associations, social service agencies. So there's a match here. The social service agencies that are being talked about here are being supported by the government here. This will become important in my weighing because you'll see what I mean. Okay. So the government creates these programs to support the elderly. Then let's just add one more sentence. These social service agencies are empowered to help needy groups such as the elderly. Okay. I added in this sentence because I'm very cognizant that it's not a generic question. The question is quite targeted. It's about the elderly. So I want to talk about the elderly. As a result, social service groups, agencies, and volunteers have access to a wider range of government funding, resources, and information to identify the elderly in need, create effective solutions to help them out, and run their programs with the funding from the government. Furthermore, the government's organization policies, supportive policies and organization fosters a, a, a positive climate of care and support for social work. This enables society, encourages society to be more active in volunteering their time and effort to help the elderly. Help and support the elderly, thus meeting their needs. Okay, so let's run with these explanations. Right, the government sets up these programs, policies like the toolkit to help the social service agencies to help the elderly, and so the social service agencies have a wide range of government funding. And furthermore, the policies have a good climate that encourage more people to go and volunteer and help the elderly. So already our explanations are shaping up to be sort of like the government is a bit indirect. It just it provides a lot of resources and funding, and the community groups and volunteers are a bit more direct. They're on the ground. Okay, and then my two P's will look like this. My two P's will look like this. So we are gonna you know that you're going to write 7A, the question, and then you're going to write out these two P's. I'll come back to these two P's in a bit. So this is the structure of a question 7 essay. Minimally, you would need to have two P arguments. All right, so this is the shape of a question 7 essay. Minimally, when you address the question, right? Step 1, you would have to analyze the question, factor 1, factor 2, focus. Step 2, you would need to write the Q argument, factor 1 to the focus, factor 2 to the focus. And then we go to weighing. And for weighing, and this one now you can flip to page 2. The last lesson, I taught you how to weigh by saying that one factor is stronger and one is weaker, using a deeper criterion. So one method I taught you was the stronger factor method. Actually, you've only seen the stronger factor method, which is first you state the final stand, which one is stronger, and then you craft the deeper criterion, your weighing scale, your benchmark, your metric, your yardstick by which you are testing which is stronger. And I suggested some possible starting points. Your weighing scale, your deeper criterion, your weighing criterion. It could be about the scale of impact, like whole society versus smaller group. It could be about time period, long term versus short term. It could be about necessity and sufficiency. Actually, one factor was enough to solve the problem. The other one is useful but not enough. Or one factor is the basis for the other factor. You will need examples to sort of flesh out these ideas, but let me just write out these ideas. So it could be scale of impact, right? Whole society versus targeted group. It could be um time period, long term versus short term. So clearly, whole society and long term are the stronger factors. If you didn't realize, and then it could be sufficiency. One factor is enough to solve problem. Other is not. It could be necessity, causal. Um, one factor is fundamental and basic. Without it, you can't do anything. Other is not. Or it could be, um, it could be causal. One factor leads to the other factor. Okay, so these are sort of five handles by which you could approach the stronger factor way. You can write it at the side of your worksheet or on a post-it or on your textbook, because these are the handles that will bring you through all the essays for upper sec social studies to O levels. Okay, today I want to talk about balanced conclusion, which is the second type of weighing, and this one is interesting and it's very intuitive, but you need to learn how to explain it, because otherwise you reduce your argument into a circular argument. So for balanced conclusion, you state final stand, you provide the reason for the balanced conclusion, and you analyze interdependency. Very important for balanced conclusion. You want to analyze interdependency. So please write this word down. For balanced conclusion, you want interdependency. Interdependency. They count on each other. Both factors are needed. Both factors are needed. Okay, so in this case, do you agree that community groups play a more important role than the government? Community groups play a more important role than the government. Recall that in our essay, we say on one hand, the community groups were on the ground, they were interacting directly with the elderly, and the government was providing the funding, creating the solutions, and helping from the backstage, front stage, backstage, direct, indirect, right? On the ground and supporting role. So realize that this is an ecosystem where two groups interact, and their interaction effect, right? The sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The interaction effects increase the impact. And so this is a perfect example of an interdependency of that leads to a balanced conclusion. So a student from this came up from a discussion I had with a student in 3F called Yi Duo, who I credit here. Okay, so we had this discussion, and I thought, this is a perfect time for me to teach balanced conclusion. Balanced conclusion. So I give you two possible weighing paragraphs again, and today I want to focus on the balanced conclusion. Okay, the first one is about the stronger factor weighing. You can read it on your own. This is actually a sufficiency argument. So if you go look at my five handles for you, this is a sufficiency argument. So you can go look at it on your own. I want to talk about the balanced conclusion. So you have written P1, which is community groups play an important role. You have written P2, which is the government plays an important role. And now we want to conclude, we want to weigh. So the weighing paragraph here is a balanced conclusion. I want to go to the balanced conclusion. I need to analyze interdependence. So the way it starts is, actually they play equally important roles. So I'm answering this, which one is more important? Which one is more important? Well, actually the answer here is that they are equally important because they are complementary and interdependent. They depend on each other to achieve joint success. Well, how do they depend on each other? Because community groups are more direct. They go on the ground to befriend the elderly. They provide the manpower, directions, and effort. And meanwhile, at the backstage, right? So this is sort of the front stage. Meanwhile, at the backstage, the government provides money and resources in supporting the community events. And over here, it's perfect, right? Because the example we had was exactly this, such as the SSAs, right? The SSAs provided these things, and the government via the NCSS provides the money and resources to the SSAs. So you have, from our examples, a clear sign of the interdependence of how they work together to scale up the community groups projects. So together, they have greater impact. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The interaction of the two factors leads to a higher impact. And so because these projects require both manpower and money, and therefore they are equally important as they play interdependent roles. And this balanced conclusion is an analysis of how they count on each other. It's interdependent, right? It's not a tried-truistic circular argument of, well, they're just equally important both because both are important. No, I'm showing how they depend on each other. That is the essence to a good balanced conclusion. Homework. Homework. First, first, you will copy question 7a, both completing the worksheet, the tables that I've deleted, the tables, both writing in the tables and writing this essay on foolscap. So write this on foolscap, factor P1, P2, and weighing. You can pause and then you can write these on foolscap. First, 7a, write the full 3-paragraph essay. And then 7b, 7c, 7d, can you please use your notes and complete all 3 essays on foolscap? For these 3 questions, I just want P1 and P2 minimally. Your weighing is optional. And today in this lesson, I spent a little bit of time to give you the handles for weighing, as well as to introduce the balanced conclusion technique, so you can think about which technique works for you. You can try different techniques, explore how these arguments operate. If you don't want to try weighing, if it's fine, minimally do 3 paragraphs for 7a, and then do double peel for 7b, 7c, 7d. And remember that for 7d, it's a special case where there's 1 factor and 2 focuses, and the peels will start like this. Okay, that's my lesson for the question 7 essay on chapter 4, Good of Society. Have a nice weekend. Have a nice day ahead. Have a nice weekend ahead. And I'll see you next time, Sec 3 students.